Hello and welcome to my channel. If anybody is watching, I hope that somebody finds these videos as I am planning to do more of the MCAT studying, and I'm sorry about that noise. I don't have a mic and I don't have any cancellation probably, so you can hear the truck, because where I am right now, it is garbage day, and they are collecting the garbage, and you could maybe you can hear it. I have no idea because it's pretty loud for me. So I'm going to be doing the Jack Westin's daily cars question that they post, which is awesome, and we'll be posting it today. So let's start reading it, and hopefully this time I'll be reading it a little bit faster, and I'm not fumbling while I'm reading, and I can pronounce the words correctly. This one has 7 questions, and I do have to make sure that this recording is not super long, so let's get to it. Eero Saarinen has said that his TWA terminal at Kennedy Airport symbolizes flight. We have heard him say that the beauty of his CBS building will be, I believe, that it will be the simplest skyscraper statement in New York. Saarinen's vision is the architect as an artist creating important works of art. However, the young English architect Cedric Price, for instance, recently criticized architects' preoccupation with the role of architecture as a provider of visually recognizable symbols of identity, place, and activity. Call it a fix or the image of a city, said Price. Such overt self-consciousness is embarrassing only to a few. In general, it is both incomprehensible and irrelevant. For Price, the architect should be more modest in his self-perception and in how he sees his designs. Familiar as it may be, then, the issue is a contentious one, as Saarinen was. So Price is a designer of facility and sophistication. As one might expect, then, both of them have produced designs which aptly reflect their respective views. This means that it is possible to see even more clearly in their work than in their remarks just how fundamentally they have both misconceived what seems to be the most important question, the question of how it is that architecture occupies its place in human experience. That is, how people will use what the architect builds. The problem is obvious in Saarinen's CBS building and Price's potteries. Think about project for a technical university in the English Midlands. There is no doubt that CBS, a prominent seat of a prestigious American corporation, is a definitive example of what Robert Venturi calls establishment modern architecture. It is well known that the Think Belt, conceived in terms of minimum cost and maximum efficiency, has been proposed as the antithesis of a building like CBS. Yet the design's similarities are really more extensive and more important than their differences. That that CBS and the Think Belt are thought of as antithetical seems to me only to show the shallowness of the controversy they represent and the depth of their designers' misconception of architecture's place in human experience. This misconception is neatly summed up in the respective approaches of the two designs to the detailed organization of human occupation of a space. Neither has thought about how people will actually occupy their buildings. In the Think Built project, the designer stops well short of offering the occupant, say, an ashtray on the grounds that there is no guarantee that the designer and the occupant have the same cultural values. While at CBS, the designers only allow him one approved by Florence Knoll, since there is no guarantee that the designers and the occupant have the same cultural values. But this is just an ironic illustration of my point. Modern designers, especially those like Saarinen and Price, become caught up in partly conscious, partly unconscious attempts to assume privileged positions with respect to the groups of people who will occupy the environments they design. The architect takes for granted his capacity to enhance the lives of the occupants of his buildings. He believes that enchantment ultimately depends upon the occupant's conscious experience of their environment being dramatically heightened. He is thus committed to a total predetermination of their experience of the environment from every conceivable point of view. In short, were he successful, he would occupy a privileged position in the sense that he would stand utterly over and above his fellows' experience of the environment he had designed. Instead, the architect should focus on how people will inhabit his building. And the title of this article, La Dimension Amoureuse in Architecture, 1969. George Baird is the author. All right. Well, I think it's important from what I've heard that even if you're not familiar with the subject matter, I mean, this article is far more, the topic or the content of this article is far more foreign to me than the one was yesterday. And I do feel like I'm not familiar as much with these, with architecture or anything that's going on in this article, obviously, but that's the point. I think you're supposed to be able to just read anything and grasp the thesis, like the overall point of the article, that the point that the author is trying to make, right? And then just answer these questions. So I'm not gonna reread it, even though I do think it was a little bit tougher to analyze than the one I did yesterday. You might have a different opinion. So I think it's perfectly okay to feel like we're not familiar with the topic and not get caught up in that. And that is from what I've heard from several people who talk about the MCAT and try to help students get through these types of passages or try to get them used to it. All right. So, based on the 5th paragraph of the passage, with which of the following statements would the author be most likely to agree? Okay. Most people who use office buildings smoke. Nope. Right off the bat, no. I'm sorry about that. How a building is occupied extends beyond its intended function. How a building is occupied extends beyond its intended function. People can rarely share the same cultural values. Both the Think Belt and the CBS building feature disorganized designs. Okay, overall, I think this article is trying to say how the architects of the CBS and the Think Belt buildings were mainly thinking about their architecture, like their design in a sort of selfish way. I know it doesn't say selfish, but I'm just trying to simplify it for myself to understand it, and not really, and adding elements and features to the building, kind of like the ashtrays that they were describing, without thinking about the fact that, well, not everybody's going to be a smoker. Not everybody's going to have those. So, like, they keep on saying that there's no guarantee that the designer and the occupant have the same cultural values. And so modern designers like those Saranine and Price, these are the architects of these two buildings, become caught up in partly conscious, partly unconscious attempts to assume privileged positions with respect to the groups of people who will occupy the environments they design. The architect takes for granted his capacity to enhance the lives of the occupants of his buildings. He believes that enhancement um, ultimately depends upon the occupant's conscious experience of their environment being dramatically heightened. He is thus committed to a total predetermination of their experience of the environment from every conceivable point of view. In short, were he successful, he would occupy a privileged position in the sense that he would stand utterly over and above his fellows' experience of the environment he had designed. Instead, the architect should focus on how people will inhabit his building. So it seems like they're dictating, the architects in this view, the author is saying that they're sort of dictating the people in the building, their experience. They're dictating by their design, they're influencing or dictating their use of the buildings. However, they should be looking at how people will inhabit this building. All right. So this is out of the question. How a building is occupied extends beyond its intended function. Okay, I like this answer because it's most in line with what this last paragraph is saying. And I think this is where the author talks about what the architects are missing. People rarely share the same cultural values. This isn't strong enough of a point. That's not the whole point of the article. Both the Think Belt and CBS building feature disorganized. It doesn't say anything about the design being disorganized, so I'm just going to go with this for now. All right, awesome. So B is correct. This is correct. The fifth paragraph of the passage discusses how the buildings built by Saranine and Price do not consider how those occupy the building use the building, and includes a discussion of smoking in order to make that point, since it is unlikely that the building is intended to function as a space in which smoking can take place. How a building is occupied probably extends beyond its intended function. Okay, awesome. I didn't really have a question about the other one, so we're not going to go through. But you most certainly can, on your end, go through the rest of the answers. If the author's primary criterion for judging the success of an architectural design were applied to cooking, which of the following dishes would be the best designed? Okay. I mean, the author is concerned with how those that occupy it, I mean, in this case, those that are making it, the chefs or the people cooking, um, how it would be most utilitarian or like most useful or most like helpful. So to them, to the people, one designed to be easily and quickly eaten. One made to fill the eater's nutritional requirements. One that is both beautiful and tasty. One made entirely of easily obtainable ingredients. Okay, so what is the primary criterion for judging the success of an architectural design? Um, Sorry, I just go into like silent reading, which is why it will be probably very useful for you to um, have the window open for the question on the Jack Westin website when you're probably doing this, because sometimes I go silent and I apologize for that if that's not very helpful because I'm reading and I'm trying to look at where it says anything about the criteria. I mean, other than the last paragraph, because the last paragraph pretty much says instead the architect should focus on how people will inhabit his building. Success of an architectural design. Okay. Um, Here he's explaining, call it to fix. Looking. For price, the architect should be more modest in its self-perception and in how he sees a design. Familiar as it may be, then the issue is a contentious one. As Serenine was so Price is a designer of facility and sophistication, as one might expect, then both of them have produced designs which aptly reflect their respective reviews. This means that it is possible to see even more clearly in their work than in their remarks just how fundamentally they have both misconceived what seems to be the most important question, the question of just how it is that architecture occupies its place in human experience. That is how people will use what the architect builds. The problem is obvious in Saren CBS building. The Price is Pottery's Think Build project for Technical University in English Midlands. There is no doubt that CBS yet the design similarities are really more extensive than and more important than their differences. The CBS and the Think Belt are thought of as antithetical seems to me only to show the shallowness of the controversy they represent and the depth of their designers' misconception of architecture's place in human experience. The misconception is neatly summed up in the respective approaches of the two designs to the detailed organization of human occupation of space. Neither has thought about how people will actually occupy their building. So that's the thing, right? That's you have to consider how the human experience, how people will. Not that the architecture is, not that the architectural design is influencing it, but how people will. So it's like giving them like a choice, or like the freedom to use it how they want to use it, I suppose. So in this case, which one were applied to? So the success would be if people had like the freedom to sort of use it however they wanted. So judging which of the following dishes would be best designed? Okay, so we have to keep in mind how, as it says, people will occupy, or people will use it. Okay, so one designed to be easily and quickly eaten. That doesn't seem like, I'm not really sure. One made to fulfill eaters' nutritional requirements. Okay. One made entirely of easily obtainable ingredients. I would say that this one made to fulfill the eater's nutritional requirements, is considering people the most. Than the rest of them. Right? Not sure. Well, this will be interesting. Oh, we are correct. Good. This is the best answer. Food is at its base meant to be a source of nutrition. So B describes a source of food that is designed to be suited to what its users need or will use the food for. Okay, so slightly different. It's good to read the answer because it's slightly different reason why this is correct than what I thought. All right. The passage suggests that both Eero Saarinen and Cedric Price, those are the architects, prioritize the wrong aspects of the building's design. Should redesign their buildings. Have designed buildings that are unpleasant to occupy. Are as right as they are wrong. Well, there's an irony, right? I mean, they're sort of kind of trying to think, by adding those ashtrays, they're sort of kind of thinking, oh, we're going to be accommodating towards smokers. But the irony is that you can have non-smokers as well. So what are you doing? Like, are you influencing them in a way that you're just making it convenient for them to smoke when they're trying to quit or something? Maybe I'm focusing on the wrong thing, but the example of the smoking kind of depicts that, right? Like, it's almost like it's better if there are no ashtrays, kind of like a blank slate, like it's as should be as empty as possible, devoid of features that okay. So what is it? The architect takes for granted his capacity to enhance the lives of the occupants of his buildings. He believes that enhancement ultimately depends upon the occupants conscious experience of their environment being dramatically heightened. He is thus committed to a total predetermination of their experience of the environment from every conceivable point of view. In short, were he successful, he would occupy a privileged position in the sense that he would stand utterly over and above his fellows' experience of the environment he had designed. Instead, the architect should focus on how people will inhabit his building. Prioritize the wrong aspect of the building's design. Should redesign their buildings. Are as right as they are wrong. Well, I don't think they're right. That's the point. Like, he has a problem with their design, the author, so the passage is not indicating that they are right. In fact, they haven't gotten it right. Have designed buildings that are unpleasant to occupy. Well, it doesn't really come out and say that. Nobody says they're unpleasant to occupy. Should redesign their buildings. It doesn't really give like a directive. It just explains what is wrong with their design. So I would say prioritize the wrong aspects of the building's design. Okay, I don't know. Okay, awesome. A is the correct answer. This is the problem that the passage described with Serenine and Price in paragraphs 3 to 5. Great. Based on the passage, the author's ideal world would best be described as one in which buildings are not judged according to how they look like they were not designed by architects, privilege function over form, privilege function over form. I mean, see, even here, like, I mean, the ashtrays are sort of a function, so maybe not, right? The author's ideals would be described as one in which buildings are smaller and more modest and designed. No. These last two are not. Look like they were not designed by architects. Are not judged according to how they look. Look like they were not designed by architects. I don't know. This is kind of a weird one. I don't know, for me, somehow. Beauty of the CABS building will be, I believe it is a simple skyscraper. Okay. Serenine's vision is the architect as an artist creating important works of art. Okay. Cedric Price, for instance, recently criticized architects' preoccupation with the role of architecture as the provider of visually recognizable symbols of identity, place, and activity. Call it a fix or the image of a city set price. Such an overt self consciousness is embarrassing only to a few in general. It is both incomprehensible and irrelevant. I'm sorry about the truck noise, if you can hear it. It's outside, right outside my room. For Price, the architect should be more modest in his self-perception and in how he sees his designs. Oh, okay, so this is a view of of Price, not on the so modest self-perception. Familiarize that the issue is a contentious one, as Saranine was so Price as the designer of facility and sophistication, as one might expect. Then both of them have produced designs which aptly reflect their respective views. Okay, so they're reflecting their respective views. That's what the author is saying. This means that it is possible to see even more clearly in their work than in their remarks just how fundamentally they have both misconceived what seems to be the most important question, the question of just how it is that the architecture occupies its place in human experience. That is, how people will use what the architect builds. Look like, okay. Buildings, based on the passage, the author's ideal world would best be described as one in which buildings are not judged according to how they look, but according to human experience, according to how people use it. Maybe. Look like they were not designed by architects. Well, I don't think I'm confused about this. The misconception is neatly summed up in the respective approaches of the two designed to the detailed organization human occupation of space. Neither has thought about how people will actually occupy their buildings. Okay. Assume privileged positions who will occupy the environments as they design. Total predetermination from every conceivable point. So instead, the architect should focus on how people will inhabit his building. Well, I mean, look like they were not designed by architects. That's kind of like a generalization of all architects. This passage is talking about two architects' designs. In which buildings are, I mean, I don't know if it's generalizing or not, look like they were not designed by architects. What would it matter if they were not? No. I don't know. I think this privilege function over form, I mean, this could be it. Function is like how the people will use it. I'm very confused about these two. are not judged according to how they look. They were not judged. Let's just do it. Okay, awesome. Thank God I didn't choose the first one because this is the best answer. C most resembles the passage arguments as it advocates function, use over form, which is what the other architects mentioned in the passage seem obsessed with. Okay. All right. Very touch and go. My goodness. I was almost about to choose like a wrong one, which is like absolutely wrong. Maybe I'm overthinking these questions. Aeroserenine implies that a building is well designed when its size is matched with an ornate design. It provokes somber and thoughtful reflection from someone who sees it. Its users are happy when they enter it. Its design is creative and aesthetically pleasing. I think Serenine was the one right here. Aeroserenine has said that TWA terminal at the Kennedy Airport symbolizes flight. We have heard him say that the beauty of his CBS building will be, I believe that it will be the simplest skyscraper statement in New York. Serenine's vision is the architect as an artist creating important works of art. Creative and aesthetically pleasing. Well, beauty, aesthetically, creative, work of an art, and they're not concerned with people. He's concerned with the design. It provokes somber and thoughtful reflection upon someone. I mean, a piece of art, and a work of art can provoke somber and thoughtful reflection. Right? Beauty, simplest. I'm leaning towards D, but I just want to rule out B. As Serenine was, so Price is a designer of facility and sophistication. The problem is obvious in Serenine's CBS building and Price's Potteries Think Bell project for Technical University. There is no doubt that CBS, the prominent seat of prestigious American corporation, is a definitive example of what Robert Venturo's establishment modern architecture. Okay, so this first paragraph is what really offers us what Serenine's buildings are like. Aeroserenine implies that a building is well designed when Serenine's vision is the architect as an artist creating important works of art. So his vision is creating a work of art, a building that is a work of art. Its design is creative and aesthetically pleasing. Well, creative, the airport symbolizing flight is very creative. And aesthetically pleasing encapsulates beauty of the CBS building. Important work of art. He's not really saying that he's creating important works of art here. He's not coded as saying that. So, what provokes somber and thoughtful reflections from someone who sees it? I'm not really sure. I would say its design is creative and aesthetically pleasing. All right, good. This is the best answer. Something creative and aesthetically pleasing is a pretty good description for a work of art, which is what paragraph 1 describes as characterizing Serenine's perspective. Okay, and why is it not B? Some people, 15%, thought B was correct. There is no clear sense that Serenine is not interested in provoking, is interested in provoking somber and thoughtful reflection. Art is not obviously related to somber feelings. Okay, good to know. Question number 6. Yay, almost done. An architect is about to design a new building. Goodness. I have a little bit of something in my throat, so my voice is kind of weird. I don't know if it's going to come across as being weird. We always sound, I don't sound like, I don't hear myself sounding like how I hear myself. Like when I record myself and I hear it back, I don't sound like myself. Is that weird? I don't know what that is all about. Okay. An architect is about to design a new building. What advice would the author be most likely to give this person? Integrate ample working space and open spaces in the building design. Focus on making the building capable of handling a wide variety of use cases. Interview and observe those that will occupy the building. I like that answer. Interview and observe those that will occupy the building. Imagine what people would want out of a building. Well, that's what the architects are doing, right? The architects are actually doing D, I think. So I'm just going to go ahead with this and see how it is. Yay! C is the best answer. By interviewing and observing people who will occupy the building, the architect will be able to tailor the building to the needs of those who live in it. Awesome. Last question. One can infer from the passage discussion in paragraph 4 that Serenine's design for the CBS building is to Price's design for the Potteries Think Belt as, one can infer from the discussion paragraph 4, they're giving us, okay, so we got to read paragraph 4. Whenever they do that, we must look at the paragraph. 1, 2, 3, 4. So one can infer from the past discussion that in paragraph 4 that Serenine's design for the CBS building is to Price's design for the Potteries Think Belt as. The problem is obvious. In Serenine's CBS building and Price's Potteries Think Belt project for a technical university in the English Midlands, there is no doubt that CBS, the prominent seat of a prestigious American corporation, is a definitive example of what Robert Venturi calls establishment modern architecture. It is well known that the Think Belt, conceived in terms of minimum cost and maximum efficiency, has been proposed as the antithesis of a building like CBS. Oh, okay. So this is really good. Right? Now, establishment modern architecture. And the CBS building is establishment modern architecture, while Think Belt conceived of minimum cost and maximum efficiency. It's the antithesis. So opposite of a building like CBS, the design similarities are really more extensive and more important than their differences. That the CBS and the Think Belt are thought of as antithetical seems to me only to show the shallowness of the controversy they represent and the depth of the designer's misconception of architecture's place in human experience. Okay. So I'm thinking that CBS is kind of like has flourishes that are unnecessary, focused on artistic design and sort of beautiful and establishment modern architecture, while ThinkBelt is it doesn't have the frills of that building, kind of like that building. So, oh, a painting to I don't know why this caught my eye. A painting is to car paint. Okay. A statue is to a stop sign. It's got the function, right? Minimum cost and maximum efficiency. Car paint is pretty expensive, so I don't know if that's cost effective. Car paint would be more expensive than the paint that you use for a painting, so I'm not really sure about that. Cocktail is to a coffee. A blue car is to a red car. This is completely wrong. What's the difference in this? Right? One's blue, one's red. I like this. A statue is to a stop design. Even though this caught my eye. Cocktail is more expensive than coffee. However, cocktails are not establishment modern architecture. Well, statue is statue modern, but that's not the point, right? I mean, antithesis. What is kind of like antithesis? This is interesting. Cocktail and coffee is not that different, but a statue and a stop sign is very different. Right? A painting is to car paint. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, I'm wrong. Oh my God, I couldn't have been wrong. More wrong. Okay. All right, that's all right. Let's see. D. A blue car is to a red car. Oh, because they're similar. We should have read this. I should have focused on the last sentence. Is that this is correct. The claim made about serenines and prices designed in paragraph 4 are elaborate in paragraph 5 is that the designs are more similar than they are different. A blue car and a red car are more similar than they are different since they are still both cars. Okay, I should have been more concentrated on the author's point of view. Oops, and the difference is limited to their color. And should have gone a little beyond paragraph 4. Okay, all right. And what did the explanation for A that is incorrect? The passage argues that the two designs in the question stem are actually more similar than they're different. This is incorrect because of how different the two objects are. Okay, I apparently chose the most different, I guess. Okay. All right, good to know. Okay, so I guess that's it for today, and I hope to do this again tomorrow and post it earlier, hopefully. I'm trying to work out how I can live stream, but I have to learn a few things. I have to figure out timings. And ideally, I would love to do this first thing in the morning and put it out. And if it was a live stream, it would be great because people can comment and we could do it all together. I don't know. I have to work this out. And then later on today, I'm going to be trying, or maybe early tomorrow morning, I'm going to be trying something because on Fridays I'm going to try to do kind of like news and catch up, like not catch up, but like read like news articles, what's being put out into the world, and like sort of whatever catches my eye. It might be like odd news or news that nobody's talking about, or just not even like news that really matters. I don't know, just for fun. And I'm doing that because I previously was living under a rock and I wasn't reading a lot of news. At one point, I was reading a lot, but then I got lost in work and studying, and I wasn't doing a lot of that. So I'm discovering, like rediscovering a lot of things. So I want to read news every day, and maybe one day I can do like a daily review of whatever I read about, and I can read it online, and that way you get to get like a different perspective or a different like look at different news that you probably looked at. Okay, well, that's it. I'm going to end it for now. This is like a 50 minutes. It went over 50 minutes again. All right, well, have a great day, and hope to see you tomorrow.